Chapter 1386. Before Feng Yi could finish, Qin Mo interrupted him. His voice nonchalant. Ask the organizers if they want to bring a family member. Little Spade? Feng Yi chuckled lightly. They definitely require a family member. Bojio. Qin Mo glanced at the person holding the phone, knowing that she had heard it as well. He smiled. What time is it? 1 p.m. on the top floor of the club. There had been people who wanted to interview them, and this time, their wish came true. Qin Mo tilted his head. You heard it. The organizers require a family member. Bojio. Just like that, the Almighty brought Bojio to the company. She wasn't really his family member. Anyway, she was the driver when they came here. When they reached the ground floor of the club, it was filled with fans. This was probably the effect of the Asian Cup. It would be too eye-catching if the two of them entered. Qin Mo was about to call the security guards to control the situation. On the other side, Bojio pushed the door open and walked out. She stuffed a hand into her pocket, her scarf covering her face. Qin Mo arched a brow. Bojio looked at him in confusion. She had already opened the door, but the Almighty wasn't alighting. Qin Mo exchanged glances with a certain someone. When he heard the screams, Big Spade, my hubby, I want to give birth to your child, he broke into a sudden laugh. Your popularity isn't bad. His cold voice didn't sound like a compliment. Bojio was confused. What was wrong with little Princess Qin? He definitely didn't hold hands. Immersing. With that in mind, she turned and held onto the door frame with one hand. She planted a kiss on Qin Mo's face before tugging his wrist and walking forward happily. Qin Mo listened to the commotion and looked at the person who was dragging him forward. There was a faint smile in the bottom of his eyes. When the fans saw this scene, they had mixed feelings. Especially Qin Mo's fans. Their Almighty had been coaxed out of the car by Big Spade, hadn't he? From the posture just now, it seemed like Big Spade was the more aggressive one. She turned to look at the stunned Spade fans and coughed lightly. Forgive me, our Almighty Qin isn't like this usually. He actually, coaxed by his girlfriend. Shameless to the point of making one's hair stand on end. But for some reason he still looked so handsome. Even though he had a cold personality, when he saw Spade Z, he would reveal a mesmerizing smile. Not to mention, when Big Spade held his hand, he even gave his fans a bonus. Welfare. Wait a minute. Almighty Qin would never give out benefits. But what was going on now? He actually stopped in front of a group of people. Bojio was confused as well. She arched a brow. Who knew? Qin Mo didn't look at her. Instead, he looked at the girls standing at the side. Do you want an autograph? Nod. Of course he wanted it. The fans were going crazy. Qin Mo reached out and took the carbon pen from one of them. He lowered his lids and wrote slowly while saying, There's something you need to pay attention to. Yes. Almighty Qin, speak. What do I need to pay attention to? They were so close to each other, and his gay friend had even laughed at him. If he came, he definitely wouldn't be able to get Almighty Qin's autograph. Almighty Qin was the kind of person who didn't show his face for 100 years, let alone an autograph. Now he felt as though he was in a dream. Qin Mo had already finished signing. He took a long time because he added a prefix. Z's boyfriend, Qin Mo. This autograph was really... Bojio's expression was indescribable. Qin Mo's fans coughed once more, trying to preserve their Almighty's image. People in love are like this, it's true. Spade Z's fans nodded. No one in love would sign like this. Almighty Qin was really unprecedented. Qin Mo's fans knew that their Almighty's actions would definitely go down in history. Fortunately, no one exposed him. Reality proved that even if no one exposed him, young Master Qin would follow through with whatever he wanted to do. For example, he could have left after signing the autograph. Unexpectedly, he didn't leave. Instead, he stood there and smiled. It's not a big deal, but... With that, he pulled Bojio in front of him. This person can only have children with me. As for the husband that you call him, it's impossible. The fans who were disqualified paused for a moment. So Almighty Qin had stopped to give them an autograph just to tell them this? This time, the Qin Mo's fans didn't know what to say. They could only cover their faces to express their emotions. Their almighty Qin was really arrogant and full of jealousy. Very quickly, this scene became a trending topic on a certain blog. Zhao Sampang, who happened to be doing a live stream today, saw it. Our brother Zhao had quite a number of fans. His fans would tease him. "Hey brother Zhao, you're even fatter today." But just a moment ago, the atmosphere was different. That was because the fans were asking a different question. "Brother Zhao, when are you going to find a girlfriend?" Zhao Sampang wore his headphones, playing games while looking at the screen. He waved his hands. No, if I find one, what about my female fans? I have to be responsible for them." "Brother Zhao, wake up. F***ck brother Zhao, how can you have female fans? You must be dreaming again. We are all blue avatars. Look at the logo, it's a guy. To be honest, brother Zhao, even your archenemy Qin Mo has started dating. The only person I want to turn gay is in a relationship. Why aren't you doing anything?" Zhao Sampang's fans knew that Qin Mo's name was his explosive point. Once it was mentioned, it would explode. As expected, Zhao Sampang stopped playing games. Manage, lock the screen. Lock the person who wants to turn gay for Qin Mo. I only want straight men. F***ck Qin Mo. That guy is a walking dog food. The fans immediately started shouting 666. He must have been provoked. "Old Zhao, don't cry. It's okay if you don't have a girlfriend. You can hug your chubby self." Zhao Sampang was furious. "I'm going to hug my head. I'm going to challenge Qin Mo to a duel tonight. I'll let him show off his dog food all day long." Who knew that as soon as he finished speaking, the bullet screen was full of comments. All of them had the same sentence. "Don't go. I'm afraid you'll be beaten until you call me daddy." Zhao Sampang felt like he couldn't continue living like this. Why were other people's fans cute, while his were a bunch of rough guys who spoke the truth? No way. He had to post Qin Mo's shameless public display of affection in the WeChat group. "The most handsome man in the world, your Lord Fatty. Are you there? Come out. Lin Chen Tao Tao. F***ck. I'm impressed that you change your name every day. The most handsome man in the world, your Lord Fatty. You flatter me. Did you see Weibo today? Don't you think someone is especially shameless?" "I saw it, there's no limit to how shameless he is. I watched it with a chicken wing in my mouth. After that, I really wanted to beat someone up. I don't want to say anything. I just want to call 110. Someone is abusing a kind dog like me. That signature is really enough. What do you guys think? I think we should tag someone, Qin Mo. I think someone should send a red packet. They're already dating, right? Qin Mo. Send a double. Since there are two of them, they should send a double. Forget about Little Spade, her boyfriend will send it, Qin Mo." It was probably because his phone kept ringing. Bojo glanced over. It was a rare sight to see the Almighty sending a WeChat message. She wanted to see it. He wasn't going to let her. He blocked her with one hand and lifted his chin. "Sit over there." Really, he was guarding against her like a wolf. Bojo arched a brow. While he was lowering his lids, she pressed down on his wrist. She took the chance to take a few glances. Qin Mo chuckled. "What is it? Mrs. Qin, are you checking on me?" Bojo hadn't expected such content. Instantly, she felt like she was at a disadvantage. She picked up the mineral water and took a sip. When she glanced over, the Almighty's fingers moved. "Are you really going to send it?" The Almighty didn't seem like the type to send red packets. It was a trap. As expected, Bojo glanced at the screen again. The red packet had indeed been sent, but the name of the red packet was infuriating. Dog food. Bojo could foresee that the Almighty's group would explode with the words Qin Mo is shameless. Qin Mo, on the other hand, was extremely calm. After sending the red packet, he kept his phone as though he wasn't the one who had started the fire. Bojo couldn't help but take out her phone and enter WeChat. Qin Mo. If you have the guts, don't leave WeChat and don't turn off your phone. This was Zhao Sampang. Even through the screen, Bojo could feel the resentment in his voice. Honestly, the hatred the Almighty had garnered today was enough for her to challenge a beast king. How did it feel to have such a boyfriend? He probably wanted to laugh. When the interviewer came in, he saw the faint smile on the youngster's face. It was probably because of her long legs as she sat lazily on the chair with a mineral water bottle in her hand. Even though he knew she was a girl, he couldn't help but admire her handsomeness. Bojo glanced over slightly, her gaze landing on the employee's name tag. She stood up, stuffing a hand into her pocket as though she was about to leave. Chinemo reached out and tugged on her sleeve. Bojo, immersing. Wasn't he going to do an interview? She wanted to take a stroll. Chinemo replied nonchalantly. The organizers have arranged seats for the family members. The interviewer immediately replied. That's right, Almighty Z. Even though this is a solo interview, we hope for the family members to be around. The interviewer bit the bullet as such situations were rare. But if she still couldn't understand Almighty Chin's gaze, she wouldn't be able to stay in the industry. But she had to thank Almighty Chin for this. The worst-case scenario was that Almighty Chin wouldn't be able to come. Unexpectedly, Almighty Chin wasn't the only one who came. Even Spadesy was here. Their show had yet to start, and they were already on fire. Bojo had always been cooperative with others. This was probably due to her upbringing. She had been like this ever since she was young. She might be cold, but she wasn't emotionless. Her father had taught her to respect everyone's career since she was young. Hence even now, Bojo wouldn't put anyone in a difficult position. She sat there, the floor-to-ceiling window behind her. Chinemo had asked Assistant Zhang to send Princess over. She hugged him, intending to play with the cat for a while. Princess was infuriated. In order to express his anger, he kept purring. But this person wasn't threatened by him at all. Princess could tell that his master had spoiled a certain someone to the point of being out of control. He wouldn't stand up for him. It was better for him to adapt to the circumstances and be a well-behaved cat. After all, it wasn't bad being hugged by this person. The interviewer was satisfied with the arrangement. Even though Spadesy didn't show her face and had her back turned, everyone knew who she was just by looking at her back. Besides, the aloof youngster hugging the cat and wearing a black sweater was too handsome. As a mature woman, she was about to turn gay. He probably noticed the interviewer's gaze. Chinmo's long fingers tapped the table, his voice slow. Not interviewing anymore? Ah, Almighty Chin, I'm sorry, the interviewer said as she gestured to the cameraman who was following them. Chinemo seemed to be answering some questions, but in his heart, he wasn't just on guard against men. He had to be on guard against women as well. Speaking of Almighty Chin's relationship problems, it's what the fans want to know the most. The interviewer seemed to be chatting casually, but in reality, she was stunned by Almighty Chin, who was emitting a cold aura. For some reason, Almighty Chin seemed scary. Almighty Chin and Almighty Z, which one of you confessed first? Is it convenient for you to tell me? Bojo heard the question too. Her hand that was caressing the cat's back paused. Was there a need to ask? Of course it was her. She had wanted to buy little Princess Chin when she was young, but he would always frown when he saw her. It was obvious that he didn't have any feelings for her. But before she could finish her thought, she heard the word, me. The interviewer was slightly surprised. Almighty Chin doesn't seem like someone who would confess to others. She didn't have a choice, she's stupid. Even if I gave her my entire body, she wouldn't be able to sense it. I could only confess. Chinmo's tone was obviously different from before. The interviewer laughed. Judging from Almighty Z's gaming style, she doesn't seem stupid. Almighty Chin might have been too subtle, and Almighty Z might not have understood it. That's possible. After all, she was too young back then and didn't know how to read. Chinemo didn't just answer the question, but also threw a stone for the interviewer to continue asking. As expected. She was too young back then? Gosh, did you and Almighty Z know each other since you were young? The interviewer felt that she had dug out a huge piece of information. Chinemo replied nonchalantly, Is it strange? No, it's just that during the Asian Cup, the fans saw the interaction between Almighty Z and Almighty Hoshino, and thought that they knew each other since they were young. Chinemo smiled. Everyone should know the truth now. Chapter 1387. I do have something to remind him of. Chinemo glanced up casually. There was a smile on his lips, but it didn't seem warm at all. It's here. It's here. The female host was extremely excited. She had a premonition that the fans would definitely be concerned about such a question. After all, everyone had seen the scene at the Asian Cup. What is it? Almighty Chin, can you elaborate? The female host passed the microphone over, her eyes filled with gossip. Chinemo lifted the corner of his lips, his voice slow. Hoshino, Yusishin has been waiting for you for a long time. When are you going to have a good talk with him? Ah. The female host was confused. After all, she had predicted thousands of results, but not this one. Almighty Chin, are you saying that Almighty Xian and Almighty Hoshino they? Wait a minute. She had to calm down. She had to watch her words. This was the only way she could dig out more information. But before she could react, Chinemo spoke again. His tall figure stood up, his aura of abstinence thick. I don't mean anything. 5 minutes are up. My girlfriend and I are going to meet the parents. Please go ahead. The female host wanted to continue asking, but she didn't have the guts. Beside her was the CEO's secretary. When she heard Boss Chin's words, she smiled lightly and led the interviewers out. The Chin Club had always been polite to anyone who came to cooperate. But who could understand the frustration of a reporter who only heard half of the information? The female host and cameraman felt the same way. Bojio, who was hugging Princess, stood up after they left. Brother Emo, you did it on purpose. When Chinemo saw her face, he turned and smiled. What are you doing on purpose? You purposely led everyone to misunderstand the relationship between Hoshino and Yusishin. Bojio muttered softly. That's too shameless. Chinemo narrowed his eyes and pulled her over. I'm shameless? Bojio opened her mouth but didn't say anything. Since I'm already so shameless. Chinemo held her waist. Why don't I be more shameless? Hey. Bojio felt his hand reaching in. Her waist softened. This is the office. Chinemo leaned forward and kissed her neck, his voice deep. Don't worry, no one will come in. Wasn't this a question of who was there? Bojio's hands were already weak from the kiss. The princess took the opportunity to run away. She didn't even have her only cover anymore. Behind him was the desk where he had sat and signed countless contracts. His back was pressed against it, and he could feel the coolness of the business. There seemed to be some papers on the table, and they were all scattered on the ground. The temperature gradually rose. When two people are together, they become addicted to everything. Probably because they always wanted to be close to each other. Or perhaps it was because of the fatal attraction that had existed since the beginning. It was just that he had some misgivings in the past. Now there seemed to be nothing to worry about. A numb sensation spread from her tailbone, accompanied by a pleasant peppermint scent. It was the unique scent of a man. It was as if it had been smashed into pieces, infecting her body bit by bit. You are mine. You can only be mine. Bojio listened to his possessive words, her back turning hot. After all, the Almighty had never done this before. Chapter 1388. The numbness didn't dissipate even after his hand left her body. Bojio felt that this couldn't go on. Every time, the Almighty would use his charm on her. She couldn't just let herself sink into it. Actually, this time, he didn't do anything because he had considered her body. But the more he did that, the more she heard his panting beside her ear, the more numb her back felt. Less than a quarter of an hour had passed. The temperature in the room dipped. Only then did he pull her up and take her to wash her hands. Bojio was always the one being taken care of. Seeing him tilt his head, she couldn't help but say, Brother Emo, why did you tell the host that you confessed first? I was the one who confessed first. I wanted to buy you the first time I saw you, but you rejected me. Chinemo was speechless. It's not good for your reputation to say that the girl took the initiative. Chinmo's attention wasn't on this, he was nonchalant. Bojio paused. She was worried that it would damage her reputation. Was that why he said that? What should she do? She always liked the person standing in front of her more than the day before. He seemed to be like this forever. He thought a lot for her in places you didn't know. When they were alone, he was so arrogant that he wanted you to chase after him. But in front of outsiders, he was the one doing everything. What are you doing, little Bojio? Chinemo helplessly allowed the person in front of him to hug his waist. There were still bubbles in his hands. He could only look at her and arched a brow. Do something bad and I'll throw you out. Bojio laughed. She was full of playfulness, completely unbothered by his threat. Chinemo looked at her hedonistic young master's behavior, and there was a smile in the depths of his eyes. It was rare for them to have such moments. They sat in a room. He read his contract while she played with her cat. Every 10 minutes or so, he would walk over and pinch her face or kiss her. Bojio felt that she was a qualified study boy. Even though she didn't need to make tea or pour water, she could help the Almighty during his boring times. If the people outside heard this, they would definitely die in a matter of minutes. How could their boss Chin ever be so bored? But the best thing today was that boss Chin didn't laugh coldly. Not even once. Even the people in the project department were in a daze. They had thought that their world would end after the Asian Cup. After all, it meant that boss Chin's attention would return to the company. It was the end of the year. For every department, this was a big sweep. He really didn't expect it. Boss would be so casual this year. As long as you don't go in and take up too much time, you won't be criticized. Young Master Gio, oh no, young Mistress Gio was truly a blessing to them. Are you hungry? Chinemo glanced over. Bojio held a biscuit in her mouth. It's all right. It seems like working with me is a little boring. Chinemo put down the pen in his hand and raised his eyebrows. Let's find something to do. Bojio lit up. That was possible. She had been watching the Almighty seriously signing the contract, and wanted to go over and kiss him. The sense of abstinence in business made her heart itch. According to the usual CEO script, finding something to do must be intimate, right? However, this boyfriend of hers never played by the rules. Your physics book is still with me. Come here and review. Bojio. Chapter 1389. Bojio felt weak and listless. On the other hand, the Almighty was as noble as ever. He held the pen in one hand and tapped her forehead. Don't tell me you don't know how to do this question. Brother Mo, don't you think it's a waste to use our time together to revise physics? Bojio tried to pull the atmosphere back. Chinemo looked at her. I don't think so. There was no way to continue chatting on this day. Bojio glanced at the physics knowledge in front of her. She couldn't help but reach out and grab her hair. She was the young lord of the hacker world, but she couldn't even handle a single lesson. Losing in this aspect was really... Chinemo could probably tell that a certain someone was depressed. He liked to see her like this. It's time for the final exam. If you don't work hard and do well, how are you going to face your mother-in-law? It was supposed to be a simple test. Hearing the Almighty's words, why did he really have a psychological burden? Wait a minute. A person like Movie Queen and probably wouldn't care about results. Bojio tilted her head. Movie Queen and cares about the results? In the past, I was always first, what do you think? Chinemo asked slowly. Bojio became serious. Little did they know. What Chinemo said was true. But there was something he didn't mention. When Chinemo had been in high school, Movie Queen and had always wanted to grab her son to go shopping. Every time, her cold little boy would say, Mom, I still have to study, as an excuse. At that moment, Movie Queen said, it's okay if you fail. It could be seen that after such an analysis, little Bojio was tricked again. But this time, Chinemo was the first to admit defeat. He just liked to see her depressed expression, but he didn't want her to forget to eat and sleep. Chinemo frowned when he saw that she wasn't even drinking the water he fed her. He moved the physics book away. Bojio glanced up. I'm not done. There's no need to look. Chinmo's voice was calm. I lied to you just now. My mom doesn't care about grades at all. You're her little Almighty. She likes whatever you do. Bojio paused, twisting her neck with one hand. Phew, Brother Mo, be more sincere. But why did you suddenly want me to review? It couldn't be because of that inhuman interest again. Although the Almighty used this to tease her. But this time, he felt that there was something else. Nothing. Chinemo replied casually. Bojio seemed to remember something. She glanced at his phone that had just been ringing. It was a call from the school. MMH. Chinemo didn't hide anything. Bojo was confused. What did he say? It's about filling in the application form. Chinemo placed the cup in front of her lips. Bojo was suddenly enlightened. Brother Emo, are you trying to get me into your university? No wonder he wanted her to review physics. After all, a university's admission score was unusually high. Chinemo did not deny it. Bojo pulled her physics book back, intending to continue reading. Unexpectedly, Chinemo reached out and blocked the page. I'm not going to look at it. Your current results are fine. What if I fail? Bojo bit the tip of her pen. Let's see if it's safe. Chinemo lifted her up, placing her on his long legs. It's fine if I fail. I'll transfer to whichever school you get into. It doesn't matter where I go. Bojo paused, drinking the water he fed her. Even the tip of her tongue was sweet. Chapter 1390. But his handsomeness only lasted for a second. The next second. But even so, you still have to read the physics book. Bojo. Just as the two of them were in the office, the members of the Japanese team were shopping. Jiang City had the longest history in China. There were many places worth visiting. Moreover, the competition had already ended. There wasn't any psychological burden when they played. Of course, that was at the beginning. Later on, someone took off his mask when he was eating the tonghulu. The entire street of tobacco bags seemed to have been ignited. The youth was speechless. Hey, can't you keep a low profile? You know your face is more ostentatious. Vice captain and captain are more ostentatious. Why don't you say so? With that, his tone suddenly changed. He looked at the tonghulu in his hand, his eyes round and clear. Good news. It was so delicious. The youth snatched it over. The speed at which they avoided the fans was very fast. It could be seen that they were a group of experienced fans. Yu Cixin and Hoshino were nonchalant from the start to the end. Especially Yu Cixin. Before a certain idiot took off his mask, he had already entered the shop next door and picked out a paper fan with a Chinese flavor. It should look good with the kimono at home. After choosing, he realized that he didn't bring his wallet. He pursed his thin lips. He dialed a certain someone's number. The paper fan shop on the right, come over. Hoshino was wearing a mask too. He was wearing a pure white down jacket. The design was huge and there was a circle of pure black fur on the collar. Not many men could wear such clothes. But Hoshino was obviously an exception. His legs were too long. Coupled with the aura he had, any clothes on him would look like luxury brands. Hoshino didn't say much when he saw Yu Cixin calling him over. He just threw his wallet to him. Yu Cixin took it and gave 3 pieces to the cashier. It was a normal action. But it made the eyes of the surrounding girls who were shopping for paper fans light up. After all, in China, no man would buy paper fans. Besides some cosplayers, they were gay. But the aura of these 2 people didn't seem like cosplayers. Could they be a couple? They were all wearing masks. Yu Cixin noticed the gaze from the side, but didn't say anything. He just smiled devilishly, making it hard for others to understand him. Most of the media who received the news were attracted away by the other members of the Japanese team. In other words, they were too busy chasing after their target and didn't realize that there was a bigger fish behind them. Of course, there were also lucky reporters who followed them. There was a new esports enthusiast. Because the camera he was carrying was too heavy, he couldn't run anymore. He wanted to order a stew to cook first. He didn't expect that as soon as he got the stew, he would be stopped by 2 people walking towards him. Believe big. Star God. Even though both of them were wearing masks. But for the Japanese fans who had been there for 5 years, it was a piece of cake to distinguish them. He couldn't care less about eating. He took the camera and walked around, blocking in front of Yu Cixin. He mustered up his courage. You must be Shinda. I'm a fan of Dongying, and also a reporter of Chung Entertainment. This is my ID. Due to the different regions, the cultural differences were also different. After he finished speaking, he added the word please at the end. Yu Cixin originally thought that most of the reporters had left. He didn't expect there to be one more. But to him, it wasn't a big deal. Chapter 1391. The reporter didn't expect Almighty Xian to be so easy to talk to. He was afraid that he would offend Almighty Xian if he asked too directly, so he could only change his method. It's like this: Almighty Xian probably hasn't seen Almighty Qin's interview. Almighty Qin said that you have been waiting for Almighty Hoshino for a long time. Cough, do you think he is right? Yu Cixin didn't have any reaction. Hoshino arched a brow. What did he mean? The reporter saw that Yu Cixin wasn't replying and wanted to cough again. Unexpectedly, Yu Cixin raised his hand and placed his arm on Hoshino's shoulder. He lifted the corners of his lips. Do you think he is right? The reporters were all stunned at that moment. He even forgot to press the camera button. When he came back to his senses, Yu Cixin had already taken a step forward. Almighty Hoshino was in the crowd too, but his voice could be heard. You did that on purpose, right? Isn't it good to verify Qin Mo's words? Heh, it's probably because you're too threatening. Hoshino, haven't you realized something? You and Z are too intimate. Yu Cixin was nonchalant. As a boyfriend, he shouldn't be happy to see such intimacy. Hoshino laughed lightly. As Z's boyfriend, shouldn't he be prepared for this? Z has always been likable. Yu Cixin. What's the meaning of that flaunting expression? He didn't want to shop anymore. Seriously, there wasn't much to shop. Yu Cixin narrowed his eyes. His slender figure was about to leave, if Hoshino hadn't pulled him back. Go over there and take a look. What are you looking at? Yu Cixin's young master's actions were devilishly handsome. Hoshino's voice was as gentle as usual. Don't you need to raise the little thing you brought back? I really don't understand whether you are the master or me. We don't have enough cat food. There's a shop over there. We can buy some. Yu Cixin didn't say much. After walking a few steps, he said faintly, You are more attentive to a cat than to me. Tobacco Bag Slanted Street was especially crowded at this time. There were sounds everywhere. In addition, they had to avoid the reporters and fans who might recognize them. Hence, Hoshino didn't hear what Yu Cixin said. She tilted her head. Her face was still covered by a mask, revealing only a pair of ink-like eyes. What did you just say? Nothing. Yu Cixin stuffed his hands into his coat pocket, acting like a rich young master. Where's the shop you mentioned? Hoshino walked forward. Why would someone who doesn't even know the cat food store bring a cat home? I met it when I was cleaning up the people. It was raining. I can't possibly get rid of the cat too. Yu Cixin said this casually. Hoshino could almost imagine the scene at that time. It was definitely a group of black-clothed men. He stood at the very front, looking so lazy that he didn't seem like he was here to capture anyone, but he was more sinister than anyone else. Of course, he didn't have to clear the place, but the actions of the fifth-generation head had never been difficult to understand. That was why he was able to subdue his subordinates and make them obedient. He must have seen a cat on the side of the road on a rainy day after cleaning up, so he opened his leather jacket with a cigarette in his mouth and carried the cat back into his arms. This person had no affinity with animals. He had seen him with a cat print on his chin. It was probably because his face was too ostentatious, so ostentatious that even the cat couldn't stand it. In addition, when he came back, he just threw the cat away. He was even more arrogant than the cat. In high school, this person could defeat a group of people alone. They would meet on the rooftop of the school and within a day, he would become the boss. He had been like this ever since he was young. He hated it when people said that he was beautiful. If anyone dared to talk about his looks, that person would be at the end of his life. Hoshino smiled. He pushed the door open and walked into the pet shop. Other than cat food, there was nothing else he wanted to buy. But the interview that the reporter mentioned. It seemed like he should take a look. Yu Cixin really felt aggrieved as the owner of the house. He switched off his phone. Qin Mo had better keep an eye on Z. But even if he didn't, there was nothing he could do. In China, Z couldn't do anything wrong. Yu Cixin was most worried that Qin Mo didn't have enough control over his side, and Z would return to the Fifth Avenue. If that was the case, Hoshino would follow her. The young lord of the hackers. Honestly speaking, he was interested in the past. But now he didn't have a good impression of her. Hoshino didn't know what he was thinking. He took a bag of cat food and passed it to Yusishin. How does it taste? Yusishin took it and placed a piece in his mouth. His expression was as arrogant as ever. Not bad. The people in the pet shop were all shocked. Such a handsome person just put cat food in his mouth. Hoshino paused and pinched his face. Spit it out. Spit what out? You're not the one asking me about the taste. It was obvious that Yusishin had forgotten where they were. Hoshino smiled helplessly. There was a smile in his voice. Hey, I asked you to smell it, not eat it. That's cat food. Yusishin. Not wanting to talk was probably the portrayal of Yusishin, the big boss today. Hoshino knew that he couldn't understand some Chinese. After picking a bag, he turned and asked, "Do you want another bag?" Yusishin scoffed. "One bag isn't enough for that stupid cat. I'm not buying it for it." Hoshino took out his wallet. His fingers were slender. "The extra bag is for you." Yusishin narrowed his eyes. "Do you want to fight?" "Sure." Hoshino took the bag. "Let's go back." The reporter who was eavesdropping outside rubbed his nose. It seemed like gay love was a lie. The internal situation in Japan wasn't peaceful. It was obvious between the vice captain and the captain. The vice captain didn't listen to the captain. But how should he write the topic? It was really difficult for this iron-willed newbie. No matter what, he had to post the photo online. Although Xian put his hand on Hoshino's shoulder, he felt that he was joking. Buying cat food was more realistic. At least there was a conflict between the two of them. Immersing. Right. That's right. Create a conflict. The newbie reporter felt that his idea was good. After all, there was a topic with a conflict. This was an unknown rule on the internet. Someone would definitely pay attention to it. After all, the vice captain was going to fight the captain one-on-one. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was a good idea. After posting the photo, the newbie reporter decided to give the two of them some space, and didn't continue to follow up. After about 3 minutes, he went on Weibo to take a look. The scene he imagined didn't happen at all. Instead, a bunch of people were saying, let's go buy cat food together. It's so loving. I'm definitely on the Hoshino CP. Chapter 1392. The public display of affection had been going around the internet the entire day. She had assumed it was over. But the more Boju looked at the household register that the Almighty had given her, the more she felt there was something in it. She took some time to put on her uniform before heading downstairs. After the interview, the crowd had dispersed. Supreme Alliance's official fans had a sense of order. They were more enthusiastic than anyone else when they visited. But they also understood that it wasn't good to stay here. Hence, after the event ended, the fans packed up their banners and went back to edit. Almighty Chin's words and actions were enough for a year's worth of love videos. Unbeknownst to them, in the evening not long after they left, a youngster walked down. A young man walked down. Although he was wearing a hat and a mask, his eyes were very special. She opened the Lamborghini's door and locked it. Activate voice recognition. Voice recognition activated. After the intelligent system connected to the internet, it saw its master's face in the rear mirror. The car shuddered inexplicably, an indescribable sense of familiarity. As expected, Bojo unbuttoned her jacket and arched a brow. "I'm here to analyze something. Master, if it's about your boyfriend, you don't have to look for me." Little Blackie's voice was calm, but after the system's analysis, its master was here to flaunt her affection again. Why was master still harassing it even after leaving the army? Didn't she have a bunch of fans online? Go and look for them. As a single car, it was under a lot of pressure. Bojo tilted her body, a mischievous smile on her face. "It's up to me, not you. Little Blackie, have I been treating you too well recently, MMH? Do you have to make me listen? Can I play a song for you? Master, you humans are so noble. When I found this song that day, I felt like it was written about me." Little Blackie sang the lyrics. "I'll be waiting downstairs in 3 minutes. If your boyfriend isn't obedient, I'll chase him out. If you're lonely, I'll talk to you." Bojo laughed. Enough, you're an intelligent system. Why are you learning a love song? Master, you've changed. You weren't like this in the past. You used to love me so much. Little Blackie changed his tone. Bojio smirked. Next time, don't watch idol dramas online. Be more normal. Take a look at this. As soon as Xiaohei scanned it, 3 words appeared in the data system. Household register. The Demon King's household register? Little Black's tone was very specific. It was very calm, but even so, it was still trying its best to express its fear. The great Demon King could have given anything, but why did he have to give this to his master? Also, what was the meaning of his master's sweet smile? MMH, Brother Mo's household register. Do you think Brother Mo is hinting at something by giving me his household register? Bojio tapped her chin with her fingers, looking suave. Little Black didn't want to speak, because he knew that even if he didn't speak, his master would still be able to give him an answer. Did he want me to confirm our relationship, but was too embarrassed to say it directly? That's why he gave me a household register? Bojio shook her head helplessly. Brother Mo has always been like this since he was young, shy. Little Black. It really couldn't imagine what the great devil looked like when he was shy. Chapter 1393. At this moment, Bojio couldn't hear Little Blackie's shouts. You've been overseas with me for a long time. There's something you definitely don't know. In China, people rarely send their household register. So? If cars had expressions, Blackie would definitely be speechless. You're hinting for me to propose. Bojio broke into a beautiful smile. Brother Mo, you really don't mean what you say. Little Black felt the need to stop him. Master, don't forget what Grandpa Butler said. As a girl, you have to be a lady. What does a proposal have to do with being a lady? Besides, Brother Mo has already given himself to me. If I don't express my gratitude, wouldn't I be a scumbag? I'm not a sugar daddy for nothing. Bojio glanced at Little Blackie casually. Xiaohei. Fine. You're so handsome. Whatever you say is right. I'm just a driver. Why should I argue with you? It had to ask the netizens later. After the owner found a boyfriend, she didn't pamper the car anymore. What was it going to do? She hadn't been joking when she said she wanted to propose. Since they were going to propose, there had to be a sense of ceremony. Grandpa Butler was an expert in this area. Of course they had to find him. When Grandpa Butler received a call from his young master, he was trimming the orchids he had recently raised. After hearing the conversation, his eyes darkened. Young master, does young Master Qin know that you're going to propose? Of course I don't know. If I knew, what other surprise would there be? Grandpa Butler thought to himself. That shouldn't be young Master Qin's plan. No matter how I look at it, it looks like something that our young master came up with. Thinking up to this point, Grandpa Butler once again felt that there was something wrong with his education. He had to remedy it. Young master, you're still young now. You're not allowed to get married in China. That's nothing. We can get engaged first. Bojio leaned against the back of the car, her gaze bright. Grandpa Butler. When their young master became smart, there was really no way to save him. All right. Grandpa Butler took off his gloves. Get engaged first. After all, this is China. As long as they didn't get married, if young Master Qin did anything wrong to young Lord in the future, he could still bring young Lord back to the Fifth Avenue. After all, it was convenient to do anything there. Here, young master has to redo the messaging system. Of course, although it took time, it was easy for the king of hackers. However, Grandpa Butler hadn't even thought about moving their headquarters to Huaxia. When the boss was still alive, he wanted to return to his homeland many times. However, there were still some things that were inconvenient. It's good that young Master Qin is here. It was probably because of this that the Key Case Investigation Unit no longer published such reports. What they were thinking was that since young Master Qin could restrain young master, things wouldn't be too chaotic in the future. In reality, the restrictions were mutual. In the end, it was those two who were willing. He found a balance between black and white. This balance would not be broken in the near future. Grandpa Butler was worried about the future. This time, for the sake of the Asian Cup, young master wanted to participate in the movie. He still had to find an internal solution. At the very least, no one would think that it was really Z. He had to make them feel that young master was only acting. Also about the proposal. Grandpa Butler stretched out his hand, like a perfect gentleman, and pressed his forehead, since the young master was serious. Chapter 1394. On the other side. After the discussion, Chin Emo walked back to his office. He glanced at the empty black leather sofa and turned over. His long fingers tugged at his tie, his tone indiscernible. Where is she? His assistant cursed inwardly. Boss Chin had told him to watch over young Master Gio. Oh no, Miss Gio. She was here just now, the secretary, who had been delivering tea and pastries the entire afternoon, replied. She didn't dare to breathe heavily. Just as the air in the office started to turn cold, Bogio pushed open the door. Bogio reached out and pushed the door open. She arched a brow. Brother Emo, are you done? Immersing. Chin Mo's voice was calm. He threw his tie onto the office table and walked over. He held her hand and said, do as you see fit. He brought Bogio downstairs. They walked from the office to the elevator. Countless people wanted to stand up and take a look. Even though they knew that Boss Chin's girlfriend wasn't simple, and had seen her on the internet, it wasn't common. But it wasn't common to see her in real life. Even though she was a member of the club under their company, it was the same. This was a portion of the staff. The other portion was a huge fan of Spadesy. When they saw her in real life, they felt like they were floating. How could Boss Chin lock such a handsome male god in his office and not let him come out? Now they finally saw her again. The hearts of the female workers were rippling. The entire atmosphere was different from before. Especially the smell of perfume. It was much lighter. Someone had heard that Spadesy would feel uncomfortable after smelling perfume. All of them started to move. She had never dressed so innocently before. That's right, she looked innocent. Of course, other than the change in makeup. There were even bolder ones. When they saw Boss Chin holding Spadesy's hand, they mustered up their courage. Boss Chin, I'm a fan of Almighty Z, can I give her something? Chin Emo arched a brow. His thin lips seemed to be on the verge of spitting out a word. What is it? Bogio opened her mouth before him. She revealed her canine teeth and smiled beautifully. When the female worker saw that smile, she clutched her small heart and raised the bag in her hand high. Gloves, it's cold now. You usually use the computer a lot, so wearing gloves won't freeze your hands. Bogio watched his blushing face, her smile deepening. She reached for the bag, flipped it open and put one on. Thank you, I like it. Seeing this, Chin Emo glanced over and said slowly, pink and white plush, don't you think it's girly? The moment Bogio heard that, she knew the Almighty was jealous again. She tilted her head. I don't think so, Brother Emo. I'm a girl, there's nothing feminine about me. That's right, that's right. The female employees nodded. They wanted to be Big Spade. If she could wear this pair of gloves and a red checkered scarf, as long as she stood tall in the snow and smiled lightly, she would be able to melt people's hearts. It wasn't just because he was good looking. He wanted to take it home and raise it. She wanted to pinch his face. Unfortunately, they didn't have the ability to do so, so they could only benefit their President Chin. Most importantly, no one dared to compete with Boss Chin. Their love rival was too strong, and he was their boss. What else could they do? There was no point asking the netizens. Even if they couldn't take it home and raise it, they could still feed it. With this thought, everyone couldn't help but take action. Other than the gloves, there were also people who gave her cups, lollipops, and wrist guards. Once they started, they didn't care if their boss was around or not. You have to use this cup, drink more water in winter. The wrist guard is new, it's your favorite brand. And the lollipops. The assistant listened to the voices and glanced at Boss Chin's darkening face. He tilted his head silently. What should he do? Even if he was going to fire her. Wasn't this too much? It was the new year, and there were fewer talents. The company was also tight on manpower. Young Master Gio, oh no, Miss Gio, why did the sisters like her so much? Speaking of which, these people were usually very efficient. And they were also swift and decisive in doing things. If they weren't swift and decisive, they wouldn't have been able to enter this floor. Why did they all change the moment they saw Miss Gio? Their faces were filled with shyness. They looked as though they wanted to hug her and kiss her. Was this still the elite female team of the Chin group? They hadn't been like this when they saw Boss Chin during the interview. The omnipotent special assistant couldn't understand this point. Bojio's type was the one that attracted both men and women, regardless of age. She was the favorite of the sisters and aunties. There were so many gifts that Bojio couldn't carry them all with both hands. This was probably the limit of Chin Mo's patience. He tilted his head and glanced at the assistant behind him. That gaze was extremely cold. The assistant wiped his cold sweat and immediately went forward. Miss Gio is busy. Please pass me the gifts and I will pass them to you. Let me remind everyone, we are working hours now. Even though he said that, he was screaming in his heart. Didn't you see Boss Chin's expression? He looked as though he had knocked something over. The assistant was there to deal with the aftermath. Chin Mo grabbed the back of her collar and entered the elevator. The others didn't let them in. After pressing the first floor, he turned his hand and pressed onto Bojio's shoulder, pushing her into the elevator. His other hand was placed above her head, his body leaning down. There was a smile on his face, but it didn't look like he was happy. Is the candy delicious? I'm not sure if it's considered delicious. Bojio smiled faintly and lifted her chin. Why don't you try it? Chin Mo looked at the pale lips that were inches away from him. There was still a trace of light. He reached out and pinched her face. You accepted someone else's gift, and you still want me to kiss you. Little Bojio, dream on. Bojio. She was rejected by her boyfriend every day. Who else would date like her? But she had no choice. She liked little Princess Chin. Even if he didn't allow her to kiss him, she would still kiss him. This time Chin Mo didn't hide. Instead, he lowered his head and used his empty right hand to grab her waist, changing the intensity of the kiss completely. He didn't give the elevator a chance to open. This building belonged to the Chin group. Moreover, it was the elevator's password. Moreover, this elevator was originally exclusive to the president. Unless there was something special, Chin Mo was the only one who had the right to use it. This kind of elevator would be available in some conglomerate companies to save time for the senior management. But now Chin Mo seemed to have developed a new function. Chapter 1395. The temperature continued to rise. Bojio could only hear his suppressed breathing and her own heartbeat. His black and white eyes were still filled with confusion. She placed her hands on Chin Mo's waist and bit her lips lightly. They were slightly red, like flowers in the morning, with dew on them. The numbness hadn't subsided because when she glanced up, she seemed confused. Why did they stop? Chin Mo's gaze sank. Chin Mo's eyes sank. After taking a deep breath, he covered her with his jacket and kissed her again. But this time, it was just a kiss. After all, even at this stage, young Master Chin hadn't forgotten that the location wasn't right. Even though the elevator was well sealed, there was one thing. Chin Mo glanced up, his cold eyes glancing towards the top left corner. The threatening gaze seemed to be able to penetrate through the screen. His assistant immediately switched off the surveillance equipment. The next second, he received a call from Boss Chin. Did you see it? His assistant shook his head. No. It was just a kiss. Boss Chin. Aren't you clearer than anyone else? Chin Mo smirked. In the future, don't install surveillance cameras in my elevator. Yes. His assistant truly felt that in the future, Boss Chin would often come to the company to display his affection. Bojio listened as Chin Mo hung up the phone. She was smart enough to notice that the Chin Group's security system had always been thorough. There would definitely be surveillance cameras in such elevators. Bojio wasn't embarrassed. She glanced up and thought for a moment before tilting her head. Do you want me to remove them? With that, Chin Mo buttoned her jacket. Behave yourself, mate. Aren't you afraid of the bad influence? Bojio's smile was always devilish. Chin Mo chuckled. Which girlfriend would remove all the surveillance cameras in her boyfriend's company? You should hand them over to the security. Also, don't climb the ceiling, it's dirty. Bojo felt that the Almighty was despising her. But it didn't seem like it when he was zipping her up. He was probably afraid she would be cold outside. Bojo picked up the scarf she had just received. Chinemo arched a brow. You want to wear it? It looks good with my uniform. Bojo gestured. Chinemo reached out and took the scarf away. I'll buy you a better one. Bojo laughed lightly. Brother Emo, don't tell me you're jealous. What's there for me to be jealous of? Everyone's gifts added together are not as good as the one I gave you. Chinemo spoke slowly. After he helped her with her collar, he took out a mask and put it on her ears. When young Master Chin did these things, he gave off a feeling of extreme abstinence. It was hard to imagine that he would take care of anyone like that. Bojo tried to reveal her eyes. When did you give me a present? How other people express their love. Flowers for his girlfriend. Put in a good word for your girlfriend. Everything depended on his girlfriend. The Almighty didn't have any of these. The only fun he had was digging up her dark history and having a heart-to-heart talk with her at night. Basically, the content of their conversation was about how many people she had confessed to. Chinemo watched the slightly depressed handsome face in front of him. He arched a brow nonchalantly, his voice faint. Am I not considered a present? Bojo choked, coughing lightly. How could she have forgotten about that? In that case, the Almighty's present was indeed better than everyone else's combined. Idiot. Chinemo stared at her for a long while before breaking into a light chuckle. He pulled her up and left, taking all the gifts she had received along the way. Lollipops like these, I can buy them for you if you want. Do you want sweets from someone else or from your boyfriend, MMH? Bojo didn't have to think. Of course it was from her boyfriend. Where's the scarf? Where's the glove? Such a cute and trendy item doesn't suit you. Anyway, Bojo understood the Almighty's meaning. She couldn't use the gifts from others. It would be a waste to throw them away. Bojo didn't want to throw away the gifts from her fans. Chinmo's voice was calm. Who asked you to throw them away? Give it to Lin Feng, he suits this style. Alright. Bojo broke into a smile. After the competition, Lin Feng was lying in the dormitory, resting. In reality, he was sleeping. When the dormitory manager called him down to take the gifts, he was still confused. Pink and white gloves? Checkered scarf? What were these? More importantly, the dormitory manager had told him, your friend said that you suit this style. What did he mean by that? He was a straight man, why would he suit pink and white gloves? He couldn't throw them away. He scratched his head. When he brought them up, he couldn't help but wear the gloves. Involuntarily, Lin Feng was about to remove them. Yinhu pushed the door open. He swept a glance at his attire, his gaze landing on his hands. Lin Feng's face was filled with awkwardness. How was he supposed to explain the origins of the gloves to a gay? In the end, it was just a glove, not a condom. Why couldn't he explain it? It was just a little pink in color. Cough. I don't know which girl who has a crush on me gave it to me. Lin Feng had a serious expression on his face. I've already told them not to give me gifts all the time. Unfortunately, I'm too handsome, so I'm always troubled in this aspect. It's probably because the girls gave me the wrong bag and gave me their gloves. Yinhu listened to him quietly. Then he placed the curry chicken he bought on the table. His light-colored trench coat was half open before he smiled slowly. The gloves were given by Captain and Little Spade. They said that this style suits you. Lin Feng. Did you know how awkward it was? He had lied and was exposed on the spot. F***ck. All of a sudden. Yinhu leaned forward, his fingers touching the gloves that he hadn't had time to remove. Enrich. It does suit you. Lin Feng stilled. It was too close. Ever since the competition, he hadn't been this close. The uneasiness came again. Lin Feng tilted his head to the side and took off his gloves. Yinhu saw it but didn't say anything. He just hung the trench coat on his arm, returning to a safe distance. Come and eat, the cafeteria has a special meal today. Lin Feng was hungry too. Eating was good, there wasn't any uneasiness when he ate. When Yinhu went to wash his hands, he opened the box and took out 2 cans of beer. Boys were always like this. They were always very rough. There was no water during the meal, so he used beer as a substitute. After Lin Feng set up the food, He saw someone walking over and lowered his head to eat. Lin Feng was still a straight man when it came to eating. He took big mouthfuls, burying his head and stuffing his food. Yin Hu first took a sip of beer, then glanced at him and frowned. "You're so hungry, why didn't you order takeout?" "I wasn't very hungry just now." Lin Feng's cheeks puffed up when he spoke. He drank the beer, and then exhaled deeply. "I feel alive." Yin Hu laughed. This was probably how liking someone was. As long as he was by your side, whatever he did, said or ate would be pleasing to the eye. "Why are you looking at me?" As Lin Feng spoke, he felt that something wasn't right. Yin Hu retracted his gaze and replied nonchalantly. "Nothing much, the professor called for you today." F***ck. It can't be. Lin Feng bit the bamboo chopsticks. Was he that unlucky? "MMH, Yin Hu replied. "I said it for you." Lin Feng made a heart gesture. "Brother, what did you say? Did you find a good excuse for me and the professor believed it? I knew that with you around, I can rely on everything." "I said the truth." Yin Hu took another sip of beer slowly. "He said that due to your heavy extracurricular work, you will continue to skip classes and asked him to discipline you when he has time." "What?" There was a loud crack. The chopsticks in Lin Feng's hand dropped. "Brother, are you trying to get me killed?" Yin Hu took another pair of chopsticks and passed it to him. "It's a good thing to inherit the Lin family, but there are some people you aren't suited to interact with. You don't have to manage the company, you can learn a lot from the professor. Besides, I'll be in charge of your attendance in the future. The professor has some papers, you can sort them out." Lin Feng couldn't catch his breath. Brothers. Why did everyone like to attend university? It was because of the freedom in university. What did this mean? Attendance and papers? Was he going back to his normal high school life? Moreover, the one who caused all this was his good brother. Lin Feng leaned his head against the wall. "My results are really good, I don't have to go overseas. You can tell this to the professor." Yin Hu watched his expression of resistance, his fingers tightening. "Or do you think it's better to work at the construction site than in school?" Lin Feng hesitated. "That's not it." Yin Hu arched a brow. "Is it because of people?" Who? Lin Feng didn't reply. Just then, Yin Hu's phone on the table rang. The name that flashed on the screen was not unfamiliar to him. It had been this number before he left the country, and it was still the same number now. That boy. Lin Feng watched as Yin Hu picked up the phone. He didn't seem to have anything to hide. "What is it?" Lin Feng didn't hear the voice on the other side. Because he could not stand the situation, he simply stood up and walked away under the pretext of grabbing another can of beer. His head felt heavy, and he didn't know what he was thinking. He clearly wanted to take a beer, but in the end he took out a bag of spicy sticks. What was going on? Lin Feng looked at the things in his hands and estimated that it was about time before he walked back. Sure enough, when he sat back in his chair and picked up his chopsticks, Yin Hu had already hung up. "You eat first, I'm going out for a bit." Lin Feng grunted in acknowledgement. He lowered his head and stuffed another mouthful of rice into his mouth. Then he added, "I might go out later too. Take the key with you." Yin Hu glanced at him. "Where are we going?" Lin Feng thought to himself, "You're going out on a date. Why do you care where I'm going?" The report should have been submitted some time ago. Yin Hu knew it was about the Lin Corporation, and he knew who was in charge of Lin Feng. "Didn't I say to stay in school?" Lin Feng placed the beer in his hand down. "I think it's better outside. I'll tell the professor." Yin Hu tightened his grip on the phone. "You think it's better outside?" I'm being a busybody." Lin Feng was annoyed by the sound of the phone. "No, everyone thinks differently, right? You're so smart, so you'll definitely be suitable in school. I'm different. It's not like you don't know that I've always been slow in this aspect. With a personal system to guide me, I can grow faster. Plus, the company can't wait for me that long. So you think I can't bring you along?" Yin Hu tilted his head and seemed to smile. Lin Feng didn't want the atmosphere to be too tense. Firstly, the competition had just ended, and secondly, Huzi had just returned. Lin Feng glanced at Huzi's phone screen. All right. Don't you have to go out? I can handle my matters." I'm not a child anymore. Basically, this kind of excuse. It could be said to be a complete rejection. Yunhu's hand fell to the side, his eyes looking at the person standing in front of him. Sometimes he really wanted to ask a certain someone, "You can't accept a man." Or "You simply can't accept me." But he couldn't ask such a question. Because once he asked, it would be equivalent to forcing everything into a corner, since he had already told him. This time, he wouldn't be like the previous time. He was determined to turn him gay. So no matter what, he wouldn't retreat just like that. "We'll talk about this when I come back." Before Yunhu left, he reached out and caressed Lin Feng's head. Lin Feng was a little stunned. When the door closed, he couldn't eat anymore. What was this? Didn't Yunhu know how to keep a distance? Or was it because he had completely put him back in the position of a good brother? Hence, he wouldn't be so careful with his actions. Lin Feng threw himself onto the bed. He didn't turn on the lights as the sky gradually darkened. That phone number appeared in his mind again. It seemed it was better to move out. If he didn't move out, the direction was getting more and more wrong. Perhaps it wasn't something wrong with Yunhu. It was him. What exactly did this F*** up feeling mean? Lin Feng raised his hand and placed it on his forehead. He told himself, things had already come to this stage. It was already useless to say that he regretted it. The competition was also over. It was already the second half of his third year. The school wouldn't say anything even if he moved out. If the professor said it seriously, he would get permission. Everything was fine. He was still greedy for the gentleness that belonged to him in the past. Not long ago, he didn't have the right to have it anymore. Those two people were very good. He could only say, they probably weren't fated in this life. They were destined to be in the position of brothers. It wasn't that the timing wasn't right. It was just that the timing wasn't right. In this world, it was the easiest thing to regret. It was probably because you were determined to turn gay. Chapter 1396. Lin Feng didn't wait for Yunhu to come back. He found an excuse, sent a message and went home. When Yunhu received the message, his eyes dimmed. The boy looked at it. It's him. Yunhu kept his phone, his voice calm. I've arranged everything for you. Look for Director Xiao when you get there. Don't appear here again. The boy wanted to have something with Yunhu, but he realized that the person who asked him to act was too hard to get close to. No, it wasn't just hard to get close to. He had never intended to have anything to do with any boy other than that person. After the act, the boy realized it. Hence, after receiving the money, he was well behaved. This time, it was something they had agreed on beforehand. But the boy didn't understand why this person wanted him to go out of town. Mr. Yin, can I ask when I can come back? Yunhu glanced at him. I said don't appear here again. The boy paused, feeling the impatience. In reality, Yunhu's temper wasn't good to anyone. Only Lin Feng. Most of the time, as Lin Feng had said, as the only grandson of the Yun family, he didn't care about anyone's feelings. Even if he had a good upbringing. But his nature was arrogant. That was probably what he meant. The boy didn't dare to say anything else. He knew that even though this person was a university student, with his family background, it would be easy to make him disappear from this circle. Moreover, his current boss had given him the title of VIP. After Yunhu met him, he called his good friend, his voice emotionless. Morongan, what do you mean? From what you said, did you meet him? How is it? I saw you take him away previously, so I kept an eye on him. This time, I asked him to contact you directly. Brother, you're finally enlightened. Yes, Lin Feng isn't bad, but people are straight, right? With your thoughts, he definitely wouldn't be able to understand them. Moreover, I feel that even if he understood them, it's not like he'll. Before he could finish his sentence, Yunhu interrupted him. I seem to have warned you before. Don't talk about people like him in front of me. Okay, I was wrong. Morong didn't want to anger this boss. Is it because I don't like my arrangement today? This time, Yunhu laughed, but his voice was extremely cold. If you continue to arrange these messy things, you know what the consequences will be. Mu Rongan's back stiffened, and he immediately restrained his tone. Alright, I know you're being conservative. The competition is over, so what do you plan to do next? Didn't you say you wouldn't go abroad? MMH. Yunhoo replied faintly, knowing that he wouldn't mess around. Stay in school. It's as simple as staying in school. Morongin had long wanted to do something with this big shot. Apart from him, probably no one else knew how powerful this big shot was. He was the top student of a university, and he had never gotten that title for nothing. When it came to international discussions, those professors would always bring him along. This was a very powerful thing. Ordinary people might not be able to feel it, but businessmen would understand. To be able to attend such events, it wasn't just a matter of money and power. It was also a matter of real ability, or even top-notch ability. In addition, Yunhoo already had a background, so it was easy for him to get some resources. It would be a pity if such a person didn't do something. Yunhoo spoke on the phone as he walked up the stairs, his tone still the same. During this period of time. Don't. Morong An's eyes suddenly turned. Haven't you always been doing that? Yunhoo frowned. Speak properly, what's that? Lin Corporation. Morong An grasped the most important point. Hasn't Lin Feng been running around the Lin Corporation's construction projects recently? They seem to want to cooperate with us. How about it? Are you interested? At this moment, Yunhoo had already opened the door to the dormitory. It was already empty. The person who was originally sitting at the table was nowhere to be seen. It was empty as though the wind could pour in. Yunhoo closed the door, lowering his lids to glance at the direction of the luggage. Even there was no one there. What was this person planning to do? Hey, are you listening to me, big shot? Boss. Morongin held the phone, not knowing what was going on over there. He wanted to raise his voice, but a voice came over. He didn't know if it was because it was winter, but it sounded cold. I'll accept the cooperation you mentioned just now. Morongin really didn't expect it to be so easy. Although he had expected that mentioning a certain person's name would be useful. But according to his understanding, even if Yunhoo was a person like this, he might not be poached over. But now, although Morongin didn't know what was going on, from a certain point of view, it was like a pie falling from the sky to him. That's great. I'll immediately go and ask the people below to loosen the conditions for them. No need. Yunhoo glanced at the empty luggage rack again. The conditions are the same as usual, but there's one more condition. MMH. Let Lin Feng come over personally. Don't tell him that I'm in charge. Morongin understood tacitly. All right. Don't worry, I'm doing things right. Yunhoo hung up the phone. He sat on the chair in the dormitory. It felt a little cold. He asked that person to wait for him, but that person took away his luggage. It was obvious that he had the intention to move out. Indeed, for people like them, they could have moved out a long time ago. They just had to apply to the professor. For third-year students, it was easier to operate this way. After all, the students of a university basically had their own set of logic when they were outside. Yunhoo was the professor who refused to let him go. Otherwise, just like what Morongin had said, he would be a CEO wherever he went. Besides, who didn't know this person's face? Most importantly, he didn't want to leave. Regarding this, Morongin was also clear about it. Firstly, it was because of Supreme Alliance. Secondly, it was because he wanted to accompany someone as simply as possible. Yunhoo had once said, if it wasn't for him, or if he wasn't by my side, I really don't know what kind of person I would become. When he said this, Yunhoo was lying on the ground. The wine bottles at his feet were all toppled. Only he was sober. Probably only people familiar with him knew this. Yunhoo wasn't a good-tempered person, and he wasn't a kind person. Especially when he was young. The Yin family was worried that he was too stubborn and would become a bad person when he grew up. Indeed, Yunhoo seemed calm, but he could play with any kind of people. Old Master Yin had once said, if this child was raised well, he would be a political talent. If he wasn't raised well, he would become the biggest headache for the Yin family. If he hated someone, he would use the most vicious methods to deal with the other party. He was polite to people, but he never really put anyone in his heart. There was no absolute concept. Until Lin Feng appeared. At that time, Lin Feng was older than him. But because of his exquisite looks, Yinhu was especially patient with him the first time they met. Yinhu liked beautiful things, be it objects or people. But at that time, he thought he liked Lin Feng because he was beautiful. But the more he waited, the more he realized that wasn't the case. Even if his hands were dirty from playing basketball, he didn't care. Because he was disfigured from fighting, he just wanted to beat up the person who fought with him. The two of them just had to sit together and play Super Mario. When he was 5 years old, he didn't seem to know anything. How could it be calm when boys interacted? Naturally, it was a case of you kicking me once and I kicking you once. But the next day, he would still drink a glass of milk with him. He just found this person pleasing to the eye. The more he looked, the more pleasing to the eye. So pleasing that his mother said, "It would be good if Lin Feng was a little girl. Look at how interesting it is when they are together, they even eat at the same time." Or when she was helping him put on gloves. Playing with Lin Feng again? You child, only Lin Feng can make up with you. Oldly has been crying for 3 days. Didn't he just break one of your game controllers? You don't want to play anymore. Lin Feng has broken so many of your controllers, but I've never seen you act like this. Old Li's boy wasn't ugly, he really looked like a doll. But he still felt that the yawning kid was the cutest. Especially the way he protected him. It was unforgettable. But now he didn't seem to be protecting him anymore. He even wanted to move out. Yinhu sat there, unsure if he was smiling or something. The corners of his lips were pressed down, and he looked lonely from afar. On the other side, Mother Lin was surprised to see Lin Feng return home. "Why are you back at this hour? Why did you bring so many things?" "MMH, I don't have class tomorrow," Lin Feng replied vaguely. "I have a project to work on. This place is close to the company, so I came back first. I'll talk to the professor." Mother Lin looked at him. "Son, even though I think it's fine, you still have to take care of the school." "I know." Lin Feng placed his luggage. Mama Lin glanced outside again. "Are you alone?" "MH." Lin Feng removed his scarf. Mother Lin arched a brow. "Where's who? Isn't he in the same dorm as you? The two of you are so old. Could it be that you had some sort of conflict?" "No, Empress Dowager." Lin Feng was helpless. "Don't keep thinking about the plot in your head. Why would I fight with him?" Mother Lin nodded. "Indeed, who has a good temper? If you fight with him, no one will play with you in the future." "Lin Feng, who exactly is your biological son?" Mother Lin asked. "Then tell me, since you didn't fight, why did you come back alone? If I remember correctly, who should be in school now?" Chapter 1397. Mother Lin noticed that Lin Feng's condition wasn't right today. She had thought that he was really tired because he had to run to school and the company. Plus, the competition had just ended. Her son probably wanted to rest, so she didn't ask further. Lin Feng carried his luggage and threw himself onto the bed without tidying up his clothes. Before this, the Lin family had already moved out of the military courtyard. Their neighbor was no longer the Yin family. It was probably because of the gap that had always existed. That was why it was like this now. Fortunately, the competition was over. However, there was another meaning to the end of the competition. Even the interaction between the two of them was about to come to an end. In the past, they could still be connected through the competition. What could they rely on in the future? In the adult world, there had to be something. If they had met later on, perhaps the gap wouldn't have been so huge. But it was because they had grown up together. Lin Feng closed his eyes. However, it was too late to think about this. He had to maintain a suitable distance. Even if they met in the future, it would be at the club. Mother Lin glanced at the room outside the door. He fell asleep so quickly? It was probably because Lin Feng didn't have much to do. Hence, most of the time, no one would describe him as meticulous. After the competition, everyone's life was different. Shui Yaoyao was the same. She stood under the shower, wanting to wash away the scent on her body. But she realized that once something was imprinted on her, it was hard to get rid of it. Fortunately, it wasn't too late. She was basically used to it now. After living for a long time, one would get used to it. For example, she could calmly stand in front of him, and put on her clothes one by one. If it was in the past, she wouldn't have dared to think about it. Her appointment with him was coming to an end. When she entered university, everything would stop. At that time, there wouldn't be so many messy things. Shui Yaorao put on the long down jacket. She still wasn't that eye-catching, but it could be seen. Compared to before, the down jacket was a whole circle bigger. Jiangzuo was half naked, his back leaning lazily against the headboard. His slender fingers held a cigarette. His expression couldn't be seen from this angle, but he could see her clearly. She had changed so much since he knew her. At that time, he had never even thought that she would lose weight one day. Furthermore, he had lost so much weight. Inexplicably, Jiangzuo felt frustrated. Especially when he saw that she was still so empty after putting on the down jacket. He remembered that she only ate an apple for lunch. Was there a need for such a thing? After seeing that back view, Jiangzuo pressed the cigarette butt into the ashtray, a faint smile in his voice. Do you intend to be like this forever? Shui Yaoyao stopped and turned around to look at him. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Thinness is beauty. Jiangzuo was a person that others couldn't see through. It was true in the past, and it was even more so now. Shui Yaoyao's expression was indifferent. She didn't seem to be targeting him. They seemed to be like this. They couldn't quarrel. When they saw each other, they were intimate. After the intimacy, they returned to their respective homes. There would even be a scene of siblings being courteous at the dinner table the next day. Recently, even his mother had become a lot happier. The atmosphere of the Jiang family had never been better. Chapter 1398. Oh no. Shui Yaoyao put on the hood of her down jacket. I'm leaving first. Wait for half an hour before you leave. It's safe this way and Uncle Jiang won't think too much. Jiangzuo laughed, but there was no warmth in his eyes. You're different from before. You're really thoughtful now. Shui Yaoyao didn't study the meaning of his smile. She took the things. Be careful. The Jiang family needed them to be harmonious. This way, her mother's life would be much better. In reality, she didn't want to continue like this. After all, in some people's eyes, they would always be basking in the glory of the Jiang family. Shui Yaoyao didn't deny this. But she didn't play esports. Shui Yaoyao had heard the comments of people in his circle. Play esports? She's still playing at this age. Girls playing esports? Like the female casters? The last sentence was always a little flirtatious. In the entertainment empire, the Jiang family held many business gatherings. Jiangzuo didn't know why, but he suddenly figured it out. Shui Yaorao had always understood that Uncle Jiang marrying her mother was just nostalgia. In his heart, he still liked the woman who had a similar voice and appearance to Jiangzuo. Jiangzuo had a good temper, and Uncle Jiang was happy all day. Even such business gatherings were mostly controlled by Jiangzuo. The people who came seemed to know her and her mother's identity. There was no disrespect. There was no respect. Of course, there were still some gossip. The daughters he knew, her classmates, would always say a few words when they saw her. Most of them were to wake her up, not to have wishful thinking and not to think that she could do anything just because she was close. Shui Yaoyao didn't speak. If she had a choice, she wouldn't want to return to the Jiang family. Compared to these occasions, she would rather stay in Uncle Yin's internet cafe. There was cocoa, fengshang, and Uncle Yin's various instant noodles. It was a warmth that wasn't present in the Jiang family. Very few people cared about her studies. Other than Coco, who would nod her head and say, "Really, why is it so difficult? Are all the questions in the country so difficult? My head is about to explode." As a young master who grew up overseas, he wasn't used to the lessons in the country. Because of this, Coco even called his captain and asked pitifully if he could tutor him. As the student representative of a university, the captain had never been weak in science. "I only tutor my girlfriend." Almighty Qin's words completely froze Coco. Even now, Shui Yaoyao found the scene hilarious. Because it was rare that Almighty Qin didn't hang up the phone. He added, "Also, don't always call to disturb my relationship. Can't you guys solve this kind of small matter yourselves?" After Coco was hung up on, he posted on Weibo, "Captain, have you ever considered the feelings of us single dogs? Why is the question so difficult? Many people were comforting her at the foot of the stairs. But what was even more heart-wrenching was that most of the fans were asking, "How did you show off? Tell us about it." Coco finally caught him, and he started to complain about his captain's usual behavior. Because it was Weibo. Bojo would come to take a look as well. Chapter 1399. He said he's only tutoring his girlfriend and told me not to disturb his relationship with such a small matter. What? From the punctuation, Bojo could tell how Coco was feeling. She didn't bother reading the comments. Instead, she glanced sideways at the Almighty beside her. He must have noticed her gaze. Chin Mo's hand paused at the red light. What is it? Nothing. As a domineering CEO, she shouldn't expose the Almighty's intentions in front of others. After all, the Almighty could be shy. Once again, little Blackie understood his master's thoughts. He couldn't help shaking. It was puzzled. The devil had so many cars, but he didn't drive them. Why did he choose it? As a world-class smart sports car, little Blackie needed a companion to have a good chat with. Ever since it came to China, it realized a benefit. As long as it went online to complain, there would be people who would complain along with it. That was a good point. Little Blackie had already thought it through. Once they reached the destination, it would secretly log on to its own network and share its master's daily life with the netizens. Seriously, don't underestimate its account. A lot of people were already paying attention to the post it posted. Some were even asking if it had a follow-up post. Are you hungry? Chin Mo stopped the car. The reason he asked was because she was whistling restlessly again. Bojo smiled. A little, I'll get some. This was a good spot. There was a Burger King next door. Bojo wore a mask. She relied on her long legs and didn't take a detour. Instead, she used the stairs that were half the height of a human to climb over. Chin Mo frowned when he saw her from the car. But her actions were indeed handsome. The black coat carried the wind as it fell. The few girls who had just come out of the Burger King were staring at the youngster walking towards them. Long legs, slim waist, and silver hair with a mask. They couldn't help trying to guess her identity. Their first thought was that she was an internet celebrity, but she didn't look like one. After she entered, she took out her wallet and didn't remove her mask the entire time. Instead, she bought a bunch of things. From his voice, they couldn't tell which streamer he was. It's such a pity that such a big brother doesn't dabble in the internet. The girls still wanted to find some clues. The youngster had already bought the good stuff. With a takeaway paper bag in one hand, and a cup of unsweetened coffee in the other, he walked over. They still couldn't tell who it was. She just felt that her side profile was enough to make one's imagination run wild. What would happen if he took off his mask? Bojo noticed that someone was looking at her. She didn't avoid it, her eyes curved into a smile. In an instant. Then he heard an awe sound behind him. Someone also took a photo and posted it on Weibo. Today, I saw a young man with silver hair and a black mask. He climbed the stairs to buy a burger. Although I didn't see his face, I felt that he was very handsome. The words black mask and silver hair quickly caught everyone's attention. After all, he had left a message with Coco. Now that he saw the keywords appear, he couldn't help but smile. Many people's first reaction was, "Am I thinking too much? Why does this back view resemble my big spade so much?" Definitely. In the game, it's normal to climb over stairs to buy a burger in real life. The more I look at him, the more he looks like my Almighty Z. Almighty Z? Who was that? The girl who posted the photo didn't play games, so she didn't know anything about esports. But that was it. Strangely, the number of shares on her Weibo suddenly increased to a frightening level. Many people were at her, asking for her coordinates. Of course, there were also sober ones. I just came back from that place. I'm so sad. I feel like I've missed my big spade. It's probably too late to go over now. Am I the only one who noticed that Big Spade was holding a cup of coffee besides the Coke? He must have bought it for Almighty Chin. He must have bought it for Almighty Chin +1. Almighty Chin always lets his girlfriend buy things while he stays in the car. Let his girlfriend take revenge for him. Let his girlfriend fly him. Facepalm, I don't want to say anything about Almighty Chin's relationship. As a senior Chin fan, I just want to say big spade, you can't return it. The fans' worries didn't come true. After all, what kind of person was young Master Chin? How could he give someone the chance to return him? He asked someone to get out of the car to buy things, more or less because his phone kept ringing. And the caller wasn't anyone else, it was his mother, Movie Queenin. It wasn't just the phone. There were many WeChat messages. Why isn't your household registration book in the family? I received a call from Countrywide today, saying that they want to have a marriage alliance with our family. I asked your father, and you actually agreed. You actually agreed, Chin Mo. Let me tell you, if you dare to abandon my Geo, you're finished, let me tell you. Movie Queenin had always been elegant, but no matter how elegant she was, when her son didn't even reply to her messages, the anger in her heart rose layer by layer. This cold boy, was he courting death? Her manager was trembling at the side, reminding her softly, there's media, there's media. How could she still care about the media at this time? She took a deep breath, her beauty in full swing. Continue to call him. The manager was also from a branch of the Chin group. What else could he say? That was Boss Chin in the past, he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Now, under Movie Queen Anne's instructions, he had already called him no less than 3 times. Why did Boss Chin knock off normally today? As his subordinates, it was getting more and more surreal. Boss Chin might be busy. The manager maintained his smile, finding an excuse. He was afraid that calling a 4th time would disrupt his boss's date. After all, he had personally seen his boss leave with Miss Geo. His expression was indescribable. Even though he was smiling, there wasn't a hint of a smile in his eyes. Not only that, but the most important thing was that he had specifically sent a message to them to inform them. In the future, he would remove some of the red tape in the company. For example, gifts, he hoped that there wouldn't be any more. 23333, he was obviously jealous. Movie Queenin didn't know what had happened before, but she had to clarify what a marriage alliance was. The other party was a family with ancient royal blood. Chapter 1400. Movie Queenin thought about it. Just then, the phone in her hand rang. The caller ID showed that it was the cold kid from her family, who never picked up her calls. Movie Queenin raised her own son, and was very familiar with his ways. She didn't appear to be in a hurry. Instead, she prepared to ask him slowly, "What do you intend to do?" "Madam, I don't understand you." Chin Mo looked through the car window, his eyes landing on a figure not far away under the light. Just that one sentence. The elegant Movie Queenin adjusted her shawl. "Don't feign ignorance. Your grandfather said that someone came for a social gathering and you agreed." Chin Mo was nonchalant, calculating the time a certain someone would be back. MMH. Which family son was like this? Just an MMH? Movie Queenin really wanted to call her husband. Chin Mo seemed to have guessed his mother's thoughts. "Before you complain to my dad, you can ask grandfather which family is the one hosting the event." "Why didn't I ask?" "He said it was an ethnic Chinese who left China before the founding of the country. He has an ancient noble bloodline from Countrywide." The more Movie Queenin spoke, the more her imagination ran wild. "You bunch of capitalists, socializing for the sake of profits." Chin Mo knew that his mother had shifted her resentment towards his father onto him. "You didn't investigate carefully. You can ask grandfather, and you will know why I agreed." Movie Queenin narrowed her eyes, changing the topic immediately. "Why don't we have your household register at home?" "I gave it to your little male almighty," Chin Mo said casually. Movie Queenin thought for a moment, going straight to the point. "What does giving the household register have to do with the socialization? Your little male almighty needs a hint before he acts." Chin Mo didn't deny it, revealing more information. Movie Queenin felt that there was a trap behind it. "Are you trying to trick Geo again?" "Madam, watch your words. We are mutually in love." Chin Mo glanced out of the car window, his long fingers tapping on the steering wheel. "All right, she is coming back soon. You can ask about the socialization. Also, Mizzen, I don't mind if you become a fan of your little Prince Charming, but don't be too ostentatious. For example, Don't show up at the gift-giving events that are organized. You know your own influence. If you show up, the attention will be too much. Movie Queen was indignant. You make it sound as though I'm troubling you. I'm helping my male idol gain popularity. In the future, the Teen Group will create a few more sales channels for anti-fans like you. You can invest your money in your little almighty, Teen Mo said casually. Movie Queen tilted her head and glanced at her manager. Your boss Teen even wants to earn money from me, his mother. Goddess, the media. Teen Guan's agent broke out in a cold sweat. He had never seen anyone with more personality than Boss Teen. Teen Mo returned to the original topic. Don't call again. It's better not to let her know about this. I'm still waiting for her to marry your son. Movie Queen. The agent didn't know what to say anymore. He just wanted to cover his face. He really didn't expect Boss Teen to be such a person. After Movie Queen hung up the phone, she was extremely happy. When the corners of her lips curved up, she was incomparably beautiful. My cold little boy finally got it, so that's what happened. The agent exclaimed in surprise. He wanted to ask Movie Queen, wait a moment. Didn't you hear what Boss Teen said about waiting for her to marry him? To put it simply, he was going to marry her. The sole heir of the Teen Group. He was chased by countless fans. The most popular, most valuable, most profitable, and most good-looking almighty Teen. He was going to marry someone? Marry someone. The agent felt that he needed some time alone. Really, in the days to come, Boss Teen was going to marry someone else, who was going to manage the Teen Group, and the business circle, the internet, the media. The agent could almost predict such news. What kind of explosive consequences it would cause. He still wanted to ask Boss Teen how he could say something like, waiting to marry, so naturally. From Movie Queen's words, it seemed like he had set a trap for him. Shameless, he was really shameless. As a top smart sports car, Little Blackie also wanted to say the same thing. He had been listening to the entire call from the devil. No wonder he had sent his master his household register. It was a premeditated plan. His master had actually thought that the other party was shy. Little Blackie really didn't know what to say. The scariest thing was that the devil could even see through the car's thoughts. The first thing he said after hanging up was, I guess I have to erase your data. Little Blackie watched as his slender fingers started to tap on the screen. He couldn't help hugging his chubby body. With my loyalty to Master, I won't say anything if Master doesn't ask. Oh, Teen Mo arched a brow. That's really loyal. It's fine if you don't say anything. She's here. Little Blackie immediately shut up. The moment Bojio stepped into the car, she felt that the atmosphere inside was a little strange. But very quickly, she was tempted by the Almighty's next move. His fingers caressed her face, a smile on his face. The Almighty had never smiled so gently before. Are you cold? Teen Mo was really trying to warm her face. Bojio wasn't that arrogant. She removed half of her mask, revealing her handsome face. I'm not cold, my body is cold. Don't hug me. The colder you are, the more I want to hug you. Teen Mo caressed her head. With that, Bojio threw the strange atmosphere to the back of her mind. Besides, Teen Mo didn't start the car immediately. Instead, he opened a hamburger and fed her while letting her drink the cola. From time to time, he would laugh softly. When he laughed, even the moonlight outside would pale in comparison. Xiao He watched helplessly as its master fell into the path of the other party's seduction. The screen flickered twice. He had a premonition. His future days would be like this forever. Little Blackie realized it. The devil was really good at fighting for attention. He didn't just do what he wanted. Another point was that whatever its owner liked, it would come up with its own set. Otherwise, until now, his master would never have thought that he was shy. Just a moment ago, his master had leaned over to kiss him. He used a chicken wing to block his master's mouth. Then he smiled and landed on his master's forehead. Eat properly. A little vixen playing hard to get. No wonder his master, who was so smart, fell into his hands. This devil. Little Blackie hadn't finished complaining. He glanced at the rearview mirror again. That was terrifying. Teen Mo retracted his gaze when he saw that the car was obedient. He used a tissue to wipe the corner of her mouth. No matter how he looked at her, she was still the most pleasing to the eye. Bojio didn't know that she had understood the Almighty's point without doing anything. She was kissed again. She was elated. There was something else she was happy about. She had received a message when she was buying the hamburger. Grandfather Butler had sent her the message. The content was simple. Everything is ready. I'm now proposing marriage to the family. Proposing marriage? Bojio realized that she loved hearing this word. Once Grandfather Butler was done, she could start on her side. Chinemo didn't know what she was smiling about. There was obviously a mischievous smile on her face. On the other hand, Grandfather Butler was rather formal. A tuxedo was a must, and he had brought along his most sincere cooperation. Everyone knew that Old Master and didn't meet people casually. The N family was different from the Chin family. All their business was overseas, and they had been doing business for a long time. People often said that wealth didn't last 3 generations, but this had never happened in the N family. Now, it was movie queen and Old Master and had tried to stop her when she wanted to enter the entertainment industry. But because of that kid from the Chin family, Old Master and had relented. After all, that person had said that no matter what, someone would inherit the N family's business. To say that this point had really been achieved. Especially his grandson, who had been outstanding since he was young. Many people wanted to get to know him. Most of them were socialites, both domestically and overseas. But Old Master knew better than anyone else. That kid had always had someone in his heart. It was also because of that person that Old Master and had never asked about his grandson's marriage. Because he knew better than anyone else how long his little grandson had waited outside the door with the amulet when he had moved back from overseas. Honestly speaking, that was the first time he had seen his grandson in such a vulnerable state. His mother had been worried that his grandson didn't want to return. In reality, it wasn't just that he didn't want to return. It was that his little friend had suddenly disappeared. That was also the first time he had heard his grandson ask such an innocent question. At that time, his grandson had been really young. No matter how young he had been, he had only reached his waist. He had raised his exquisite little face. "Grandfather, do you think she will come back?" Old Master and had been in the business world for many years. With one look, he could tell that the family next door wouldn't be coming back. Everything had been moved away. It was as though she had never lived here before. The connection had been cut off so suddenly. Something must have happened. Old Master knew it clearly, but he still told his equally rational grandson a small lie. "She will. She likes you, so she will definitely come back." "But I quarreled with her." The little grandson was like a little prince. He stood under the moonlight, still wearing that little suit. When he pouted, his eyes were a little red. "She is so stupid. She doesn't even know how to use the blanket at night. She always likes to climb over the wall. When she plays games, she doesn't care about anything else. She doesn't even know how to roll up her sleeves when she brushes her teeth." At that moment, Old Master finally understood. The child next door. What exactly did she mean to his grandson? That grandson of his was very cold to everyone. He had never liked to talk since he was young. But he had said so much in one go. With every sentence he said, the emotions in his eyes deepened. Old Master couldn't bear to do that. But the Bo family had a special identity and many things couldn't be controlled. Originally, at the start, he had thought that the child would forget after a month. But looking at his grandson who wasn't even willing to eat, Old Master had been really anxious. It was impossible to contact the Bo family. Hence, he had brought his grandson back to the country. He wanted to leave that place with memories. It would definitely be better for his grandson. But still there was nothing. At that time his grandson seemed to have been completely plated. He had become normal. Perhaps it was obvious that the gap between him and his peers was getting bigger and bigger. Very few people had seen him smile again. His personality became more and more indifferent. He didn't even have a little willfulness anymore. Old Master had always felt guilty about this. If he hadn't brought his grandson overseas, this situation wouldn't have happened. Just like that, 1 year passed. 2 years passed. Old Master had thought that time was enough. When people came to befriend him, he would see if there were any cute children of the same age. That way, his grandson might get better. But very quickly, he also realized that no matter how cute the children were, his grandchildren were all the same. He didn't have those people in his eyes. Except for those 2 or 3 of his good buddies. When little girls came, he wouldn't even lift his eyes. At that time, there were tomboys who liked to climb over the wall. The girls raised in the military compound were more or less tougher than the girls outside. But his grandson was still indifferent. Maybe he thought he was indifferent. Grandpa clearly remembered what his grandson had said before he went to bed that day. "Grandpa, don't worry. She never climbs over the wall like this. I'm always worried that she'll fall off the wall, but she doesn't worry and doesn't look at anyone. You said that she likes me so much, so she'll definitely come back. I'm still waiting." Old Master had never thought that a boy who wasn't even 10 years old would say such a thing. He didn't sleep for the entire night. When he woke up the next day during breakfast, he treated his grandson the way he would treat an adult. Because Old Master knew that he couldn't treat his grandson, who had a heaven-defying IQ and EQ like a child. Many things are complicated. Sometimes, our wishes might not come true. You are too young. If she doesn't come back, you can't keep waiting, right? He looked up from the dining table. His little face didn't have any edges yet, but he vaguely looked like a man. "If she doesn't come back, I'll look for her. It's not a big deal. If I can't find her in a year, I'll look for her for 2 years. If I can't find her in 2 years, I'll look for her for 3 years. After a long time, I will find her. If I really can't find her, I'll stand in the most dazzling place for her to see. I taught her the Chinese characters, she can't just eat them." Old Master didn't say, "What if she forgot about you?" But what happened next was beyond his expectations. It wasn't that she forgot about him. It was that his grandson forgot about the person he had been looking for. Every time Old Master thought of this, his heart would feel terrible. He couldn't help but feel terrible. He forgot about the person he liked so much. How would his grandson feel? This thought made him unable to sleep. Now, he actually saw a certain symbol again. Chapter 1401. 3 years after the Beau family had moved away. They had met before. He was a qualified butler. He was definitely first class in terms of etiquette. The old man with foreign blood took off the gentleman's hat on his head. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit and bowed in a standard manner. "Mr. we meet again after so many years. You are still as elegant as before." "Eric." Old Master could almost call out his name at a glance. The assistant standing at the side had never seen his chairman like this. It was obvious that Old Master was emotional. His hand that was holding onto the dragon head walking stick was trembling. "You are still here. Not only am I still here, but young Lord is also here." He smiled very sincerely. One could see the feelings in it. It was as if they had met good friends. The assistant watched as the butler, who seemed to have walked out from the 19th century, walked to the chairman's side. "To be honest, Mr. I came this time to help our young lord with something." Although Grandfather Butler did not have Chinese blood, when he spoke in Mandarin, his pronunciation was very good. It was just a little exotic. When young Lord was young, she was taken care of by Mr. An's family, especially young Master Chin. Young Lord has always remembered how well he treated young Lord. Although I haven't seen it with my own eyes, ever since young Lord moved away, almost all the topics were about young Master Chin. Now that they have grown up and are together again, I wonder if Mr. An's words from back then still count. The two families are on good terms. You are the one who wants to propose. Previously, Old Master had only received a visit letter. He didn't know who the person was. He had wanted to ignore it. But when he thought about it, how could such a thing happen? Which family would mention the An family when proposing? They had mentioned his grandson. This was something that only a bear's heart and leopard's gall would do. But what Old Master didn't expect was that his grandson had actually agreed to it after hearing about it. Agreed? This wasn't like him at all. In the past, he had always been indifferent when someone brought up this matter. Not to mention agreeing. As smart as Old Master was, he immediately thought of something. His grandson knew the person who had written the visit letter. Otherwise, when he had received his grandson's call and asked him to come over to explain this matter, there wouldn't have been a smile in his voice. He still remembered his grandson's reaction when he heard the news. Really? He came to propose. Then he kept laughing. He kept laughing. It was so funny that even he, the grandfather, found it interesting. Hey kid, are you feeling so good? At that time, his business partner was standing next to him and looking at him. Grandpa Ian's face was both helpless and happy. It had been a long time since he had seen his grandson like this. Just like a little kid. Yes, it's very beautiful. Grandfather, please agree for me. I'll be back soon. It was in the afternoon. It was already nighttime. The person who proposed marriage had arrived and revealed his true colors. However, old Master An could never have imagined that it would be an old acquaintance. At this moment, he immediately understood. No wonder his grandson was so happy. When he picked up the call, he could clearly hear the faint smile on the other end of the line. So it was her. In that case, Grandpa An seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes suddenly reddened. My grandson's memory has returned, right? Along with his childhood memories. Grandpa An had always been a person who could control his emotions, but at this moment, he seemed to be completely unable to control himself. It was an indescribable feeling. His throat was blocked, and he couldn't say a word. Grandpa An could only use a light cough to relieve himself. It's really great. Yes, it's great. Perhaps only those who knew what the two children had experienced would sigh like this. The old butler smiled. Our young master values young Master Chin too much. This time, she insisted on following young Master Chin when he went to carry out his mission. After bringing young Master Chin back with injuries, she even hid him at home. You know, she has always treated young Master Chin like a treasure. I don't know what kind of agreement she made with them, but she just wants to keep young Master Chin. When Grandpa An heard this, a myriad of thoughts ran through his mind. So it was that child who brought him back. His grandson's mission had always been confidential. Even his powerful and influential grandfather didn't know about it. But the higher the level, the more dangerous it was. He also had business friends in the Golden Triangle who told him roughly what had happened. Grandpa An couldn't sleep for many days. He was afraid that his grandson had been among the flames that had exploded in the river back then. Later, when he couldn't contact his grandson no matter what, there was news from that side. It said that Er's emotions were very unstable. With the hypnosis activated, there was a high chance that he would become an internationally wanted criminal. He was as smart as he was dangerous. When Grandpa An heard the news, his heart was filled with bitterness. He was such an outstanding grandson. How could he fall to such a state? Was there no one who could trust him? At that time, Grandpa An went to the Chin family. Only then did he realize that it wasn't that he didn't trust him, but that there was already a substantial danger. Other than his biological parents who dared to stay by his side. On the other hand, the soldiers he had brought out were clamoring to see their boss. But it was to no avail. Someone who could find him, protect him, and still choose to stay by his side at such a time. He heard that it was the Fu family. How did it become? Grandpa An frowned. Then the Fu family is, regarding this point. The old butler had already thought of an excuse before he came. After Master passed away, some organizations have been trying to destroy the balance in the hacker world, or use hackers to do something. If young Lord disguised herself as a high school student, it would be easier for her to hide. She also knows that young Master Chin is in this city, so she came here. Grandpa An had seen the photos of the youngster on the internet. The more he looked at them, the closer he felt. Now that he thought about it, it was no wonder that he felt so close. Since that's the case, I have no reason to disagree. Grandpa An chuckled. But Eric, you are wrong again. Here, the word marriage proposal is used by the man to the woman, not by the woman to the man. At this moment, the two of them had already sat down. The assistant handed them tea. The old butler took it elegantly and took a sip before saying, Mr. An, I am not wrong. This was all mentioned by young Lord. She said that she used all her pocket money to buy her little Princess Chin. Grandpa An also agreed at that time. She can't go back on her words now. Grandpa An paused. He didn't expect that after so many years, he would hear this sentence again. This made his mind immediately recall the scene when they had just arrived overseas. Words for the readers. Chapter 1402. Los Angeles, located in southwestern California, was the second largest city in the United States, often referred to as the City of Angels of Angels. The city was located in the Mediterranean climate zone, with a mild climate. Generally speaking, it was dry all year round with little rain, only slightly more rain in winter. The sun was bright all year round, and there was very little chance that the temperature would be below freezing point. So the chance of seeing snow was very rare. But on this day, it actually snowed in the city. The snow at night was especially beautiful, wrapping the trees in silver makeup. Especially the pumpkin car lights in the fence. The old European-style buildings with warm lights and Christmas trees everywhere. There were also some people in fur coats hurrying by. They rarely had black hair, but they all had different colors of hair, white skin, and high noses. They looked like the magicians described in Harry Potter. When the scenery became a fairy tale, the people in the scenery were even more mysterious. Under the street lights, a Huaxia Hongqi car was parked outside the fence. It was rare to see this brand of car in this place. The car looked a little old-fashioned, but those who knew cars would understand. The more old-fashioned a Hongqi car was, the more valuable it was. No, it was not just valuable. It was more of a status symbol. After all, in that era, to be able to drive a Hongqi car and drive it to Losh was probably the only one who came from Ange. The car door was opened by a professional butler. The butler was still wearing high-quality white gloves. He was a young man with blonde hair. Even his words were in English. "Sir, we're here." The person in the car did not get out quickly. Instead, he turned his head and pointed out the window to the little boy beside him. "This is where we will live from now on. How about it? Do you like it?" The little boy was wearing a white down jacket with a hood. There was a circle of silver-white fur at the collar. He wore a black mask on his face. His face could not be seen clearly. Only his voice could be heard. It was a little childish and a little cold. Yes. Just one word. This was obviously a little too quiet for a 4 or 5-year-old boy. But the old man in the car seemed to be used to it. He reached out and rubbed the little boy's head. "Then shall we get out?" "Okay." The little boy followed the butler down the stairs. He did not let the butler help him with his luggage. Instead, he held the handle of the small suitcase with one hand. This was the first time the foreign butler had seen such a polite and mysterious child. He looked down and said, "Wow, this box is really cute." The little boy followed his gaze and looked over as well. The little panda's suitcase. It didn't match his overall temperament. But things like suitcases. It had never been something a little boy could control. After all, he had a very girlish mother. At this time the old man laughed. He didn't look like a grandfather at all, except for the white hair on his temples. "There's also an Asian kid living next door. Young master, you don't have to feel bored here. I'm sure you'll be able to get along well." The foreign butler thought the boy was being reserved. But when he looked sideways and saw the boy standing under the light, he immediately felt that he was thinking too much. He had never seen a boy like this. He obviously didn't have beautiful golden hair, but he was like a little prince. Standing there, he suddenly thought of a Huaxia poem he had learned. "Young master is like jade." His hair was like fine silk, so black that it was unforgettable. Although his face was covered, his eyes were very deep, as if they could sway the sky full of snow. Not to mention his long, dense, and slightly curly eyelashes, which gave people a sense of elegance. Ah, the foreign butler sighed again. Eastern children were really too good-looking. In fact, the foreign butler didn't know. He wasn't the only one who was addicted to this beauty. There was also someone who was studying her little keyboard. On this day, someone wanted to go out and play. But after thinking about it, there was nothing fun outside. It wasn't as fun as taking things apart. After all, she had beaten up all the children nearby. It was really not easy to find someone who was willing to play with her. For this, she was punished to stand. She agreed to stand. It was too boring to stand without anything in her hands. She simply hugged her little keyboard and stood obediently while admiring the rare snow scenery outside. There was even a tiger's tail behind her. She didn't expect that there was something more beautiful than the snow in this world. Could that person be Snow White? Someone searched for the fairy tale knowledge in his mind. He looked at his face. Then he looked at the little figure outside. It was Snow White and looked better than her, like a doll. The little suitcase was also very cute. That was a panda, right? It was something that only existed in Huaxia. She heard her father talk about it. It was really cute. Even the little princess's suitcase was cuter than hers. Thinking of this, someone looked at the small square in her hand in disdain. Well, it couldn't compare at all. The little boy standing in the snow still didn't know that he was being targeted, and that the other party treated him as a princess. The word princess, to explain it in depth, was to treat him as a woman. The old man was probably afraid that the little boy wouldn't be used to it, so he took a step forward and patted his shoulder. Emma, or your parents will take you back soon. Andy also said that there is an Asian child next door. He is from Grandpa's friend's house. You don't need to be shy, that child will definitely get along well with you. Okay. When the little boy lowered his head, his eyelashes fell, forming a shadow. The old man couldn't understand his grandson's emotions. After all, this child had been like this since he was young. It was too worrisome. Go in. He was a little boy after all. He still let people hold his hand. But the little boy's eyes were still dark and calm. One hand was held by his grandfather, and the other hand was pulling the suitcase. They walked into the yard where they were about to start a new life. There was a strong American style everywhere. Ordinary children might like it very much. But the little boy was as usual and didn't show any expression of surprise. Even the pumpkin lantern car and cake in the yard didn't arouse his interest. The old man thought that it would be better to wait until tomorrow. He heard that the child next door was very lively. He hoped that he could inspire his grandson. Chapter 1403. Dad. This was the first time a certain someone called him. The man who was curled up on the sofa with a comic book covering his face ignored her. A certain someone ran over, stood still and flipped open the comic book. Mr. Bo, I need to tell you something. What is it? The man yawned lazily. He didn't look like a father at all. Did you break someone's glass or bully a child to tears? Little Bo Gio, I've told you many times, you have to be serious. I remember that you should be standing in front of the window and reflecting on your mistakes. I was thinking about it at first. Bo Gio had a serious expression. But my soul was hooked. The man smirked. His handsome face and black hair gave off an unruly vibe. I don't believe you. Dad, I think we should have a good talk. Bo Gio's eyes widened. Her little tiger's tail was still wagging. The man held his chin nonchalantly. Thank God. You finally have the awareness to have a good talk with me. What do you want to talk about? Talk about the children you beat up ever since you moved here. They are older than me, 3 years older. They aren't children, I'm the child. Bo Gio caressed her cat ears. It's a little embarrassing to talk about it. The man leaned back, his long and slender legs crossed. Embarrassed? You. Baby, you don't have this word. Tell me, what do you want? Bo Gio thought for a moment. She ran to the side and then ran back with a piggy bank in her hands. I want to buy something. You have to tell me about such a small matter. The man stood up, his fingers touching his daughter's piggy bank. Lord Gio, there seems to be the black card I gave you in there. When did his daughter become so generous? Bo Gio's little face was serious. It's expensive. Although she wasn't sure how much it was worth. But it looked quite expensive. Bo Gio glanced at the room next door. It was a pity that the little princess hadn't come out after entering. When the man heard this, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Perhaps it was because he was too handsome and had a kind of evil aura. Even though he was wearing a white shirt, he still gave off a beautiful impact. You can ask your mother about this. I can't decide the family's money. Don't forget, I'm a man who lives off a woman. Sometimes, little Bo Gio admired her father. In front of her mother, he was like a little puppy. When her mother wasn't around, In the next second, he seemed to have changed into a completely different person. Her father said that this was a little secret between the two of them, and that she couldn't tell her mother. Mom earned money to support the family, and they were responsible for acting cute. Little Bojio had no objections. Anyway, her father was already an adult, and could still act cute. She was a 5-year-old child, so it was not a big deal for her to wear tiger pajamas. When is Mom coming back today? When Bojio asked, she poked her face. It was a little itchy. Her father had never been good at taking care of children. When he heard his daughter's question, his handsome face was filled with resentment. 11 p.m. Let's cook ourselves. Come, Lord Gio, let's play a game. Whoever loses will have to cook instant noodles. How about that? I'm not guessing. Bojio hugged her wallet. I'm still addicted to beauty and can't extricate myself. I'm not in the mood to cook noodles. Chapter 1404. Little Bojio ignored her father. She wasn't in the mood to eat, especially when she heard that her mother wasn't coming back. In the end, the man stood up and stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. He glanced at the building outside and saw that the lights were on. He smiled. Lord Gio, dinner is settled. Your noodles taste terrible. I don't want to eat it. Bojio wasn't interested. The man stretched out his long legs and blocked his daughter's path. I'm not cooking. Bring the fruit platter on the table. We'll be guests next door and freeload. Next door? Bojio's eyes lit up when she heard this word. She quickly placed the fruits into the box. It wasn't right to give a fruit platter as a display gift. Even though her father was still smiling and emphasizing, that's a friend of mine who came from China despite the age gap. Bojio was still angry. That was the little princess's house. How could she just freeload? Why are you walking by yourself? The man had quit smoking ever since he had his daughter. He was wearing a mask and a black down jacket. He was so young and handsome that people would think he was a big brother. Come over and carry me? Bojio held the piggy bank in one hand and the fruit platter in the other. She looked him up and down and said seriously, I want to walk by myself. I want to give the new neighbor a good impression of being sensible and obedient. Our Lord Gio has really grown up. The man smiled again and put his hand back into his pocket. He strolled behind the little tiger, giving off an indifferent feeling. The tall and short pair seemed to have walked out of a British comic. They didn't seem like people from real life. He could faintly hear the conversation between the two of them. When your mom comes back, don't tell her that we're freeloading next door. Why? Mom will be happy if she knows that someone from the same hometown is here. Why? I can't even cook instant noodles. Don't I care about my reputation? Immersing. Mr. Bo, it's embarrassing enough that you're living off a woman. You think I won't beat you up just because you're young and a girl? Yes. Bojio wagged her little tiger tail. Mr. Bo looked at the mop and raised one hand. His voice was lazy and his side profile was very handsome in the snow. TSK little girl, your skin is a little thick. It's hereditary. Bojio turned with a serious expression. I inherited it from you. Mr. Bo didn't think much of it. That's why you're doing so well. All right, I'm going to press the doorbell. Please remember your persona. A conversation between father and daughter. He didn't expect to be overheard. The one who heard the conversation was the little boy who had brought the sled in from the side door. It was too cold outside, but he didn't wear a jacket. It was probably just a casual action. The little boy didn't like to eavesdrop. Rather than saying that he didn't like it, it would be more accurate to say that he didn't care what others said. Even so, he paused for a moment as he picked up the sled. After all, the conversation between the father and daughter was different from ordinary people. The little boy had never interacted with a father and daughter like this before, so he couldn't help but raise his eyes and glance at them. But it was only a matter of a glance. Very quickly, he closed the door. He looked at his grandfather, who wasn't far away, instructing the butler to prepare for tonight's dinner. He asked him how well he wanted the steak. The little boy was thinking about whether he should tell his grandfather that there were two people standing outside. In the next second, the doorbell rang. The doorbell rang. It was still snowing outside. Old Master and was still wondering who would come at this time. The butler had already walked over. "Sir, do you want to open the door?" Old Master nodded. The butler walked over and pulled open the silver door handle with his slender fingers. Big snowflakes poured in along with the whistling north wind. An adult and a child appeared outside the door just like that. It was probably because the pajamas the little one was wearing were too eye-catching. Old Master saw a little tiger at first glance. Her pure black eyes were filled with intelligence as she looked inside. Her ears drooped down like a curly-eared cat. She was cute and handsome. Not to mention the slender man standing behind her. There was a faint smile on his lips. Against the moonlight, he didn't look old at all. He was as bright as the stars but with a hint of evil. "Mr. Andre, long time no see." Old Master N's eyes lit up. "Brother Bo, come in, come in." Little Bojio's eyes started to turn as she listened to the adult's greetings. Where was her little princess? Why didn't she see him? Just as she was thinking about this, Old Master spoke. Old Master said, "Emo, come over and take a look at your little friend." Emo? This was the second mistake. The smart little Bojio thought that little princesses were usually very shy, so they were given a name like Emo. Hence. She was even more certain that the person she saw outside the window was a girl. Little Bojio was so confident that she confirmed the gender of her little princess. It wasn't a fantasy at all. When she saw the figure walking towards her again, she was even more confident. The other party was wearing small panda slippers, but his pants were tight, sticking to his slender and straight calves. It was very pleasing to the eye. Moreover, he had taken off his jacket. The bright red sweater inside was like the maple leaves she had seen before. However, his skin was like the white snow that had just fallen outside. His eyes were as bright as the stars and his eyelashes were so long that even though they were so far away, the length of his pure black hair could still be seen clearly. He stood there, his black hair like splashed ink. The noble aura that came along with it reappeared in Bojio's eyes. The north wind blew again, responding to the bonfire inside the house and the Christmas tree outside the house. Snowflakes floated over, and one of them landed on the boy's shoulder. He tilted his head and blew it gently before looking over politely. She didn't know why, but little Bojio felt that his gaze was too cold. However, this coldness didn't dampen little Bojio's enthusiasm. The fairy tale books said that there were many types of princesses. The one she met today definitely looked cold, but in reality, she was easily shy. She had to control herself later. She couldn't be too frivolous. She couldn't beat William like she did previously. She had to be patient with the little princess and speak in a gentle voice. Since she had brought her piggy bank back, she felt more confident. Anyway, she didn't want to scare him away. She had never felt that there was anyone who looked so good. The one in front of her. She wanted to bring him home as a pet. However, her dad had once said that if she saw something she liked, she had to buy it home. She couldn't take it for free. It was the same on the internet. Hence, little Bojio's first reaction when she saw the little princess was to hug her piggy bank. Chapter 1405. Ever since just now, this little customer had been staring at him. Chin Emo glanced down from the stare and met with a pair of distinct black and white eyes. What made him pause slightly was that those eyes seemed to only have him in them. Under the light, he saw himself in her eyes. Her eyes were quite big. This was Chin Mo's only thought. She didn't look like someone who had spoken so much just now. It seemed like she was pretending to be obedient now. He had never seen anyone pretending to be obedient like this. She looked at him unscrupulously. Chin Mo wanted to take a step forward. The child first greeted his grandfather. "Hello, Grandpa." Then she ran in front of him and pushed the piggy bank in her hands forward. Her tiger tail was still wagging. "Momo, how much are you per kilo? I'll buy you." Buy him? How much was he per kilo? Chin Mo frowned uncontrollably. He looked at the smiling face in front of him and took a step back. He didn't know why, but he had a premonition that his nightmare was coming. On the other hand, Mr. Bo laughed mischievously. "Master Gio, you're amazing. I was wondering what you were interested in. It turns out that you were interested in your new little friend." Momo is so cute. It's normal for me to be interested in you, little Bojo said. She turned her head over with a serious expression. Her ears moved. It's a little shy to talk about it. Momo, can you promise me that I will treat you very, very well? Cute. When he heard this adjective, Chinmo's little face turned slightly cold. Did this fellow misunderstand something? Cute, haha. Grandpa laughed loudly. This is the first time I heard someone say that my Mo is cute. Little Bojo widened her clear eyes. Didn't anyone say that in the past? That's strange. A little princess like Momo would definitely be liked by many people. Little princess? Chinmo couldn't help but speak. At that time, he was still young and his voice wasn't as threatening as it was now. It even had the childish voice of a 5-year-old. Even though it was cold, it wasn't as imposing as before. Grandpa was stunned for a moment before he laughed even louder. Even though he knew that his grandson was outstanding, this was the first time he was treated like a little girl by a little friend. The man had a rough idea of what his daughter had done. He laughed sinisterly. It seems like our Master Gio really likes Mo. Very. After little Bojo said this word, to show her seriousness, she looked straight at Chinmo's face. Words for the readers. New book introduction. 3 years ago, the Supreme Alliance disintegrated. The gaming genius, Mo Bay, went into hiding. 3 years later, she disguised herself as a man and returned with her name hidden. She went from being spurned to ascending the altar again, causing the whole nation to be excited. He was handsome and had countless fans. Everyone in the esports circle knew him. When she first joined the team, he told her, "Behave yourself and don't have any improper thoughts." After her identity was exposed, he looked up from the table and stood up slowly. "Do you want to abandon me after getting married in the game?" Immersing. The voice beside her ears made her feel guilty. "What else do you think I should do?" You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.